think that there is a bloodline issue with Ireland and the Celtic people that is very significant to the Illuminati, and that's part of what's going on. So, you know,
That's
you
interesting.
can think of that as you will. I obviously have a Celtic background, so I know what I'm talking about here.
Okay.
Also, but anyway, it's fascinating what is going on.
No,
That's that. I do want to say that I am doing a conference in September on called Awake and Aware in 2011 in September 23rd, 24th, and 25th, in which I'm having a number of speakers, and you can go to my website to find the link to the web. I have a website for the conference set up. We have a confirmation from all the speakers except two at the moment, and we actually have two additional speakers that are very special guest speakers, Duncan O'Finian and Axe. I'm a certain super soldier people, candidates, whatever you want to call them. And I just wanted to announce that David Wilcock has now been joined our lineup, and we have fabulous speakers. Rich Dolan, Miriam Delicato, Sean David Morton, Graham Hancock, Marcia Schaefer, and Bob Dean, and David Wilcock, as I just mentioned, and then two others who have very high-profile speakers who have also been invited and confirmed tentatively, but we haven't gotten the final confirmation to where we can put them on the site. And then, of course, as I said, the super soldier individuals, which is Duncan O'Finian, as many people will know from our interviews with him over the years, and Axe, who is coming forward for the first time. They will be speaking on the Friday night as part of the preliminary event going on to the Meet the Speakers cocktail party. So I can't say what an exciting event this will be, but you can surmise, and we will also have whistleblowers in attendance behind the scenes. So
that's a
I
big.
encourage anyone who is interested in the least bit to buy advance tickets, because that will really help us in order to secure the what do you call the venue where we're going to hold the event. It's quite pricey to put on one of these kinds of things. So any advance ticket sales that we can do, we sincerely appreciate, and you do save money. So that's that.
Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll get you to mention that again at the end of the show, and the date
Great.
and times and everything else, so people are aware, and we can mention it as well. It's not a problem. The one of the things that well, there's a couple of questions I have for you, which I'm sure our guests probably have for you as well. Bob Dane, very, very interesting guy. I seen the interview we did, Bob Dane. I'd love to get Bob on the show and talk to Bob, because he's kind of seen it done and has the T-shirt ready. And it was a fascinating interview that you did with Bob. But the question is, with all the guests that you've had on, how do you disseminate disinformation? I mean, there's so much disinformation out there along with really good information. How do you do the research to say, no, I don't believe that, and I believe this, and what way do you approach it?
Well, it's a very complex story what we got involved in, and I have to say, after 5 years of round the clock dealing with this kind of thing, I've gotten a sixth sense in this regard. But one of the things, there are ways in which we do cross correlate information, and we also triangulate it, which is to say that, in other words, if we have one whistleblower that says one thing, and then another one that says the same thing, and then another one, and they are not related, and they don't know each other, and they haven't heard each other's testimony, that really solidifies information that we're getting. And this is also something that, for example, the military will use. That same kind of triangulation is what it's called. So we do use that technique, as well as research, obviously, backgrounds and so on, as much as is possible. And sometimes we will look at, written sort of badge material or whatever it is, indications. In one case, for example, with Henry Deacon, we also get to know our whistleblowers very well. We spend time with them. Sometimes we spend hours and hours and dinners and days and, things like that, where we get to know them as people on many levels. And all of that has really facilitated our work and added to it. So, for example, in the case of Henry Deacon, we actually went to a very nearby place to his place of work and got to meet some of his co-workers. So not only that, but we were, all I can say is that we've substantiated a great deal of our material in this way. And so that on top of research, and then lastly, I would say the intuitive, which is always been, Bill is intuitive, although he may not rely on it as much as I do. And so even from the beginning of Camelot, one of the ways we chose, for example, when there was a well-known sort of researcher on the circuit, whether to interview that person, we would rely also on intuition, which has served us very well over the years, because you've got to have good intuition and good instincts, even just to stay alive in this world at this time. But certainly if you're doing the kind of work we do.
Definitely, you have to have your wits about you, and obviously, don't be too, I suppose, too in awe of guests who are people who come to you, because you have to find, you might hear about somebody who wants to talk to you about something, and then you could get so wrapped up with that fact that they're going to talk to you that you're not your sixth sense is shut down a little bit. You have to make sure that's still open and you're still aware of what's going on, I would say.
Sure. Well, one of the things that's very interesting about whistleblowers is that when they contact us, there are a lot of people. I mean, you can appreciate our email that we get, minimum 300 emails a day per person, and sometimes a lot more. And what happens is people that are really telling the truth and are true whistleblowers are often very circumspect. They do not send us emails that go on for hours. They don't send us sort of gushy emails. You can appreciate what they send us. A lot of times are very buttoned down emails, just trying to test us to see where we're coming from.
Okay.
And I've had some, we've had some very interesting experiences come out of those emails and those meetings. But yes, I mean, I have to say that we're pretty skeptical. We're not, even at this juncture, I have to say that we've reached a point where it's almost impossible at this time to come up with new material. Most people, and that includes, I mean, the many, many people that send us, hours of their, sort of ET experiences and or multidimensional experiences, which is all lovely and valid. It's just that it's nothing new to us. So, our apologies if we don't write back, or our apologies if we're not bowled over. But I have to say that also because both of us are experiencers and have had our own ET encounters, etc. These things are not much of a surprise, nor were they even from the beginning. But even now, as we've gotten more and more into the Black projects and what's really going on the planet, it's very difficult for even your average whistleblower, let's say, to have anything to bring to the table that's new. And therefore, if it's just a run-of-the-mill piece of information, we no longer bother to publish it because we've already gotten it out there. What we're looking for is new information. And like I said, that is extremely rare.
It's hard to come by. Well, here's a question that we've came across within the truth movement. You have kind of two camps, really. You have the camp that wants to know and wants to deal with the day-to-day stuff, what's happening now, what's going to happen next week. And then we have the other side, which, the people who are into the truth movement and into what's going on, but their scope of what they're into is bigger, i.e. the kind of UFO side and the alien abductions and everything else. And one side might say, well, that's all great and everything else, but what's that? I've never seen an alien, and, what's that got to do with the day-to-day stuff? Now, I don't know what that's got to do with the day to day stuff, but I'd like to ask the question, and maybe you're probably the best person to speak to, one of the best people to speak to about it, because you've interviewed so many people. Is there a tie-in or a correlation between what's happening now with the global elite and what they're doing to what's happening with UFO technology, and the Disclosure Project and all that kind of stuff?
Well, sure, they go hand in hand. I'm not sure, could you be more specific in your question? Because that's, generally speaking, of course, there's a relationship there, but I guess I don't know what the question really
I
is.
suppose the question is, for the people who are obviously people are focused on the day to day stuff. They're worried about. We had Lindsay Williams on talking about make sure you store food and make sure you have cash because the euro is going to go down. And so, from a day to day living point of view, you have people who are concerned about that, which is fine. They don't see any correlation or link to the global elites and the UFO side and everything else.
Oh,
And
I see what you're
yeah,
asking.
and
Okay.
I don't know whether there is, but we have to ask
I
the question.
know because I see them so completely, you know, intertwined that I cannot conceive of people practically at this point throwing the one out and thinking that's the only concern. Sure, there are people concerned about the nuts and bolts of what I call 3D living, which would be, paying the rent and the financial situation, et cetera. But whether they want to admit it or not, first of all, the Earth and humanity are moving into the fourth dimension. And that's why the veil is thinning and why people are having more paranormal experiences than ever before, et cetera, et cetera. And so you cannot divorce the one from the other. They're absolutely intertwined. And that means that if you ask a question as to why something is going on with regard to the dollar, for example, falling, and why they're trying to take down the US at this time economically, that's all part of an Illuminati agenda that has to, at the root of it, there's an ET overlay, and that ET overlay comes from most likely the reptilians for one thing, and then possibly the Anunnaki for another. And there's also the high possibility that the Anunnaki and the reptilians have been at war with each other for a very long time, at least a faction of them. Then there's another part of the Anunnaki that is part reptilian, and they're called the Syrian Anunnaki, from what I understand. And I would highly recommend my interview with Ashiana Dean to get into the history of humanity and how wrapped up we are in being genetically engineered by many, many ET races. And in fact, we are the composite of many ET races. And therefore, I don't see a separation between, as you call it, the day-to-day living and the ET reality and UFOs and so on. The other thing is also, I mean, in other words, we are ETs. We are hybrids. And the people that recognize that and begin to go down that road are the people that are waking up. And the people that don't recognize that are the people that are basically kind of sleepwalking through this incarnation so far. And the movie The Matrix, in some ways, really sort of diagram that out for even the most average sort of citizen, if you will. And I think even at this time, those people would admit that there seems to be a reality beyond the sort of what we might call the consensus reality that is operating at all times. And, sort of telepathy is part of that, is your ability to know before something's going to happen, to sense presences around you, et cetera, et cetera. All of this is very vital and part of your reality at this time. And people's sixth senses are waking up. People are starting to perceive other realities. We are multidimensional beings. And so all of this is happening simultaneously. But I do understand that there is a whole faction of mainstream reality that acts as though they exist in sort of a vacuum, and they have a very limited knowledge of who they really are.
I have to agree with that. This is what I kind of get upset about, because when your mind is open to what's going on, You have to have an open mind, and you can't be just closed. And although we're conditioned from birth to believe certain things, and the rhetoric and the dogma that we're fed on a constant basis, when people turn around because they say, well, I haven't seen a UFO, I haven't seen an alien, so to me they don't exist, or there's no such thing because I haven't seen them. To me, that's just pure ignorance. And it really is, because at the end of the day, I haven't seen a UFO or an alien. But that doesn't mean I don't believe in them.
But
because
you go back 100